10 Brexit lies. So let me rattle through all the lies told to you since the EU referendum up until now, and explain why they are lies. We'll start with the lies from the referendum itself. Even if you don't agree with me, consider subscribing by the end of the video. Number 10.
Every week, we send £350 million to Brussels. Money that's wasted.
£350 million a week. The claim was that by leaving the EU, an extra £350 million a week would go to the NHS from money that we no longer send to the EU. The UK, in fact, contributes £342 million per week gross, but we get 1% of UK GDP back in what's called the rebate. So we actually spend £248 million per week. If you do even more maths and take away the amount the EU spends on the UK, then you arrive at about £136 million per week. And there's no guarantee that all of that would go to the NHS. Number 9.
And if we vote leave and take back control, I believe that this Thursday can be our country's Independence Day.
Take back control. This is a lie more of argument and circumstance than fact. The argument is that by not having Brussels rule over UK policy, we will in fact be taking back control. But you could argue that the UK will always be subject to at least some form of international law in a trade deal, which could mean compromises. Most notably is the Good Friday Agreement, which creates the need for the Irish backstop, and the Common Rule Book within the Withdrawal Agreement means the UK will always be subject to the EU's Customs Rule Book. A deal that means that the UK remains in a customs union will do that even more so. However, leaving without a deal would create the need for the UK to reduce tariffs on its borders, and therefore, while we may gain control of our sovereignty, we would lose control of our economy, as the British farming industry would suffer as a result. Number 8.
If you look at the political declaration which sets out the future framework for our relationship with the European Union, it clearly identifies that we will have an independent trade policy and we will be able to do trade deals, to negotiate trade deals with countries around the rest of the world.
We can trade with the world. The claim is that by leaving the customs union, new trade deals can be made with all kinds of countries outside the EU. However, firstly, as of right now, the deal being negotiated between Labour and the Conservatives means it doesn't seem likely that we will even leave the customs union. And secondly, trade deals take time to negotiate and require the UK to fully leave the EU, which won't happen until 2 years after the withdrawal agreement is agreed. Finally is the problem that trade deals with nations outside the EU might require a drop in environmental standards and workers' rights standards, which the UK has become accustomed to as an EU member. For example, trading with the US in chlorinated chicken could simultaneously make people sick and outperform British chicken production. Number 7.
A no-deal exit will have a much higher cost impact on the economy than the deal that the Prime Minister has negotiated, which gives us the benefits of political benefits of being out of the European Union with very little economic cost. That's why we have negotiated this deal in the way we have, because we believe that our job has been to deliver the exit from the European Union that the British people voted for, but to do it in a way that protects our economy, protects British jobs and protects British business.
The UK economy will boom. So the argument is that leaving the EU will make the UK economy less reliant on the EU and therefore the UK can prosper alone. While this is an economic ambition and we haven't technically left yet, so far, all economic forecasts show that the UK will be worse off outside the EU under all scenarios. With businesses struggling to recruit migrant workers, the economic uncertainty leading to a drop in investment, and the drop in the pound making importing goods more expensive, Brexit so far has not been great news all around. However, the UK unemployment rate has fallen 3.9% to its lowest since 1975. Wages are also rising as inflation increases. But all this, of course, comes with a massive warning that we haven't actually left the EU yet, so we don't yet know the outcome. Number 6.
What I do think that the British public voted for was to make sure that we reduce immigration from the European Union. That's a given. We have to find a way of doing that. And I wouldn't necessarily say what it means to do with the single market, but what I would say is we have to work out how we can do that while promoting and protecting the economy.
Immigration will fall. The claim was that by ending the free movement of people, immigration into the UK will fall. However, while EU immigration has fallen, non-EU migration has risen since the vote. It's worth noting we still haven't actually left the EU yet, and so free movement of people is still allowed, although you'd expect government policy to be more strict on the non-EU migration it can control, and if anything, the opposite has been shown to be true. Number 5.
Brexit means Brexit, and we're going to make a success of it.
Brexit means Brexit. In case you're wondering, Brexit actually means the withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the European Union. It's a shortening of the words Britain and exit. This was a lie because the UK cannot legally withdraw from the European Union without breaching the Good Friday Agreement and creating a hard border on the island of Ireland, or around the island of Ireland. Therefore, in order to comply with the Good Friday Agreement, we'd have to remain in the Single Market and Customs Union, and only withdraw our seats in the European Council and European Commission, effectively making it pointless. Number 4.
While both sides want a deal, we have to face up to the fact that, despite the progress we have made, there are two big issues where we remain a long way apart. And I have always said, no deal is better than a bad deal.
No deal is better than a bad deal. Another lie. Not because of what a no-deal scenario could present, but actually because the implication was, as this was said, that if Theresa May negotiated a bad deal with the EU, she would pursue a no-deal path. The reality is, May's deal was voted down by Parliament 3 times, and she still didn't pursue a no-deal path, because no deal itself would have been blocked by Parliament in favour of revoking Article 50 and remaining in the EU altogether. Number 3.
The choice at the election is clear. Strong and stable leadership with me in the national interest, or a hung Parliament and coalition of chaos under Jeremy Corbyn.
Strong and stable. This was the claim that by voting for Theresa May's government in the 2017 election, the UK would have a governing party with a large enough majority in Parliament to get Brexit done well and stably, along with other policies. This didn't happen, and May had to form a coalition with the DUP. But even if May had have won a large majority in Parliament, there's no guarantee the hard Brexiteers of the ERG and Conservative Remainers would have backed the deal. Number 2.
Parliament's reached an impasse. It's absolutely deadlocked. MPs will vote down, for different reasons, any route forward, whether that's the Prime Minister's deal, which to my mind suits no one, it's the worst of all worlds, or indeed whether it's a no-deal outcome if her negotiations fail. And I think we've got to recognise that this stalemate means there's no decision coming out of Parliament, and that therefore means you have to put that decision back in the hands of the British people.
A second referendum would solve the Brexit impasse. Again, this is a claim based on assumption of an outcome that hasn't yet occurred, and with so many variables, it's hard to predict. It depends who decides the referendum, what the question is, what the campaign is like, what the result is, how much of a majority the result gets, and how well politicians implement and react to the outcome of the result. Some claim it would create further division. Others claim it could unite the country behind remaining in the EU and reforming from within. Number 1.
The United States wants a strong United Kingdom as a partner. And the United Kingdom is at its best when it's helping to lead a strong Europe. It leverages UK power to be part of the European Union. As I wrote in the op-ed here today, I don't believe the EU moderates British influence in the world, it magnifies it. The EU has helped to spread British values and practices across the continent. The single market brings extraordinary economic benefits to the United Kingdom, and that ends up being good for America. because we're more prosperous when one of our best friends and closest allies has a strong, stable, growing economy. Americans want Britain's influence to grow, including within Europe.
Remaining in the EU would be better than leaving. First, we have to define remaining, whether it means fully taking our seats as an EU member or just remaining in the single market and customs union. Then we have to define the EU of the future. And then we have to define the word better. Economically it might be, but politically it's more likely not to be because of the divisions it might create. Again, this is a lie that makes assumptions that are hypothetically based. Therefore, in my book, anything which is made up may as well be a lie. But do you agree with me? Join in the debate below and subscribe.